G'day everyone, and welcome to today's webinar and a fireside chat with Paul Breen. Paul's a serial entrepreneur and author who, in his 25 years in startups, is going to draw upon that experience to discuss the road to entrepreneurship and how young people can move beyond dreaming about it to making it really happen. We're going to cover topics today such as the two places where all opportunities reside, the ethos of better, faster, cheaper, how to identify and road test your ideas, the importance of a first customer, the counterintuitive approach, doing things that don't scale, and side hustle approach to getting moving. I am Jared Holland and the co-founder of Outcome.Life, and you'll see on your screen the good-looking gentleman, Dominic Saporito. Dom is also my business partner in Outcome.Life, which was founded in 2015 with the grand mission of helping international students get career-related jobs. We do this through running networking events, facilitating high-quality internships, running industry-based projects, and we also run a startup pre-accelerator for international students. During the webinar today, you'll notice down the bottom of your screen there is a Q&A and a chat icons. Please feel free to leave any questions during the webinar and we will do our best to address them with Paul. I would next like to acknowledge Study New South Wales. This webinar is brought to us all and is made possible due to Study New South Wales. The New South Wales government has established Study New South Wales in 2014 to improve the quality and experience for international students while studying in New South Wales and to recognise their contributions to our communities. Study New South Wales is a dedicated unit within the New South Wales government and is responsible for delivering a 10-year international education strategy outlined in the Industry Action Plan and positioning New South Wales in key markets as a leader in international education that launches global careers. Study New South Wales has four main functions: marketing, promotion and research, development of policy and advocacy to enhance the competitiveness for international education in New South Wales, delivery and evaluation of strategies and programs to improve the experiences of international students in New South Wales, and identification and generation of international market development opportunities and new technology-enabled models of delivery. In meeting with the objective of improving the experience for international students, Study New South Wales has been working tirelessly to ensure that international students feel supported during the COVID-19 crisis and empowering students to come out the other side well prepared to advance their careers. We appreciate that the period of lockdown has been stressful on everyone, particularly for international students who are away from their families and have limited support networks. This period, however, also creates opportunity, provided you are prepared to adapt and adopt a positive mindset to make the most of the situation. With that in mind, we're delighted that Paul Breen could join us today to provide some insights into starting a business and freelancing and to think more entrepreneurially. A little bit of background on Paul. He's founded and co-founded or invested in over 10 companies in the past 20 years. He doesn't look that old, but 20 years. He's a pioneer of pop-up retailing in Australia and New Zealand through the market-leading chain Calendar Club, which was founded in 1995 and has since opened and traded 2,500 of its own stores, stocking 4,000 calendar titles and selling 1.5 million calendars in 2 months every year. I'm sure everyone can assume which 2 months they are. He also chaired the group's international advisory board, which had oversight over 1,500 stores across 5 countries. Paul was an early stage investor in the disruptive payments company ePay, which grew to annual revenues of $2 billion and was sold to a US listed company. In recent times, Paul was a startup CEO for electric retailer PowerShop, and Paul has co-founded Australia's first innovation lab and has interest in several startup businesses and served on more than 10 advisory boards and boards. Some other more interesting information on Paul is that his nickname is The Bull. Maybe we'll go into that a bit later. He's written a book called The Entrepreneurial Way. Might ask a few questions about that. And the part I love most about Paul is that he started a business, he sold it to a big corporate, they stuffed it up, and later on he bought it back from them for a fraction of the price. That's enough from me. We're now going to get into it. And so, Paul, thank you for joining us. Firstly, how are you, and how have you been dealing with this COVID-19 lockdown situation?
Well, thanks, Jared. Thanks, Dom. I'm well, I'm healthy, and I think they're the first two ticks, I think. I hope everyone else out there is as well. I think COVID's taking us through unprecedented times, and it's, I'm a guy in his 50s who hasn't seen anything like this in my lifetime. And certainly in the 20-odd years in business, I've been through a lot of challenges, and once again, haven't seen anything like this. Having said that, the businesses that I'm involved in were all pretty well prepared for a disaster scenario. That's typically how I like to operate. So we're all in good shape, and reasonably happy with where we're at in the context of the current circumstances and the environment. So, reasonably happy, but understand that, there's massive challenges out there in other sectors, and, very sympathetic to all the people that are doing it tough.
So Paul, you mentioned opportunities for entrepreneurs, especially serial entrepreneurs, which I believe actually most entrepreneurs are serial entrepreneurs. They would almost be rubbing their hands at the moment at all the opportunities out there. Have you spotted anything that takes your fancy?
Look, I think it's interesting because at the moment, the average person's probably got more time up their sleeve than they've had for a long time. Now, the challenge with that is to use it productively. If you're just sitting on the couch watching Netflix and playing Xbox, you're not going to exploit anything that might be out there at the moment. And it's certainly an opportunity to learn more, to engage in self-help and to actually get more skills when you've got time. And this is the time to do it. In answer to your question, Jared, look, I'll give you an example. I mean, as you said, I've been in this sort of startup space for a long time, and I'm always looking opportunistically at circumstances and events and looking for little green shoots of hope that might lead to an opportunity. And I'm relentless in that. So one of the things, I'll give you a little example of a little business that I'm not going to pursue, but I just, as a great opportunities come out of identifying problems in a market. And we're all aware that the hospitality sector's really been hit very hard, with, many cafes and restaurants closed or being, relegated to just doing takeaway. Now, I like takeaway probably as much as the next person. And it's always troubled me a little bit because I do have an environmental side to kind of how I like to do business. And it's getting those, when I order takeaway, I get those plastic containers, the rectangular ones that don't decompose and don't biodegrade, and they'll sit in landfill forever. And time after time, you go to a takeaway restaurant or cafe, and you get given those because they're cheap. So I started to do some research around biodegradable and compostable containers. And what I was very surprised by, and it was driven by someone who works with me at Calendar Club, who actually owns a restaurant with her husband on the side. And she came to me because we had a session about an environment and how we can, reduce our carbon footprint in our calendar business. And she took that up as a challenge within her restaurant to look at ways as well. And she said, well, these are the containers we use, which were the typical containers. So she and I embarked on a bit of a journey to look through this as an opportunity. And what I discovered was she buys 50,000 of these containers a year, okay? She spends about 15 cents per container buying them. And I just did a very quick run around through contacts I've got here and overseas. And we could buy similar containers that do the same job but are compostable and biodegradable for around 20 to 25 cents. Well, for the retailer, that'd be 20 to 25 cents. So suddenly there's an opportunity there. And I asked her whether she'd be prepared to buy them. And she said, absolutely, no problem at all. And, my point here is that's sometimes how opportunities start. There's a problem out there. There's an opportunity that, that no one's really exploited. And this time after time, again, I saw the same issue in cafes and restaurants. So it's being able to design a solution that better fits the current environment. And in terms of the environment, that, having a compostable solution is far better than something that doesn't biodegrade in landfill.
So Paul, that's interesting because I get a lot of questions from students in particular who, when you're at university, I don't know, I just feel as though that they're always thinking about these things. And the question I get asked the most would be, someone would love to start a business but has no idea where to start. And I suppose that little story kind of answers that. But can you go into more detail? How do you start a business? Is it about trying to find a problem that needs solving?
Well, it is. I mean, the way that I look at opportunities is I'm looking for two things, and over time I've kind of learned that the opportunities that I've been able to be successful in, or a number that I haven't been successful in, have all shared a couple of different conditions, and that is that I look for opportunities in areas where customers are being overcharged. That's one area. And then the other area is where customers are being underserved. So overcharged or underserved. And sometimes opportunities will be where both of those conditions exist. Okay, so that means that it's just the current solution that's being used by people is just not that good. So that then leads to, can I design something or figure out something or buy something that will deliver a better, faster or cheaper solution to the consumer or the business buyer out there? And that's kind of what I'm driven by. So it's about keeping your eyes open and researching things. When I started Calendar Club back in 1995, calendars are being sold everywhere. They were being sold in newsagents, they were being sold in gift stores, department stores, etc. But no one was doing it well. So I did not invent a new thing. I did not invent the calendar. I did not invent anything. But what I kind of focused on was, how do I distribute this in a different way? And that's where the whole concept of pop-up retail came in. So in 1995, the idea of pop-up retail wasn't even a term until 2007. But we were doing it back in 1995. So we had to find a method to unlock this business. I thought that we could sell more calendars because I saw really good range of titles out there that weren't being sold in Australia. But I didn't know how to sell it in. And I had to work out, how do I distribute it? All right. And then how do I operate it and source it? And then on top of that, I realized that if I really wanted to go to scale with that business, I needed to increase the amount of calendar titles that were available. So back in 95, I could buy about probably 250 good calendar titles. Mm-hmm. Now, we stock 2,500. All right. So we had to actually, as well, over a period of time, build our supply chain backwards by encouraging suppliers and publishers, etc., to produce more content. So, there's actually opportunities all around that people trip over and don't pursue. And the question sometimes is, it's the journey, and my background was in large corporates until I was about 30, and then decided for my own reasons that I needed to go and do something myself. And it was a bit of a sliding door moment, in that I could have continued down the path of working in a bigger company or even a smaller company, but it wasn't my own thing. And it was a moment where I just decided I needed to get in control of my own destiny. And I thought, I've got to go and do this now. And then I just needed to go and look for something. And it took me a year to a year and a half of lots of, this is pre-Google back in 1995, wearing out a lot of shoe leather, drinking a lot of coffee, meeting a lot of people, researching a lot of things, thinking intuitively about how markets might evolve. And I went through a whole bunch of list of things and eventually kind of fell into this opportunity. So that ability to think that an idea is going to pop up right in front of you, that won't happen. most of the ideas that are obvious are already taken. All right. So you have to find things that are, in most cases, very micro niche, not something that's going to shoot the lights out. Like if you've got the idea that you want to do the next Facebook, yeah, you might. But the reality is you're better off looking at the start of your careers as an entrepreneur into something that is a micro niche that solves a really nice problem that's really just basically being ignored. And that's my whole career, really.
And do you think that those few years you did spend in corporate, I had a similar background to you in that I worked at big chartered firms for the first 10 years. Do you think that helped or hindered? Do you regret it now? Do you wish you had started earlier?
No, it was enormous help. It was an enormous help.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, going out, getting a decent job in your 20s, and the companies I worked for were quite big companies, both in banking and in the oil industry, and they provided unbelievable training and unbelievable opportunity. So I was able to make tons of mistakes on their money, basically.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So by the time I came around, I'd had a lot of the rough edges knocked off my capabilities, all right? Yeah. And when I came out on my own, I had to relearn a lot of stuff because a lot of the stuff and the support structures that I had working for a big company, suddenly it was me, right?
Yeah.
And my first business, which was Calendar Club, I bootstrapped, all right? So I didn't get outside money. I did it myself pretty much with not much money. So I started that business with about $30,000. Ended up having to invest about $100,000 over the course of the journey. But that became a market leader within 7 years because the timing was right for it, and the sheer amount of grunt and effort that went into creating it was really the secret sauce. I mean, I kind of would say about myself that I'm by far not the smartest bloke around. But I don't reckon too many people will be prepared to outwork me. Yeah. So that work ethic is really key to success, I think, as an entrepreneur.
Paul, you mentioned just before about you had lots of coffees with people, and I've met dozens of students, and Dom would have met even more than me, that are aspiring, or just people that are aspiring entrepreneurs. And when you ask them what's their idea, they close up and they get nervous about telling you because they think we're going to steal it. And someone just asked a question. I'm glad they've asked the question. Sashini said, if I got an idea, I don't know where to start from there. Who should I contact and what should I do? Now, my reaction to that is go and tell as many people as you possibly can. And I noticed you said before that when you were starting out on your entrepreneurial journey, you said you just had coffees with so many people, and I'm assuming you were verbalizing your ideas with everyone. What's your answer to Sashini's question then about she's got an idea, but what do they do next?
Look, I think, Richard Branson made a great statement a while ago where he said that I think it was opportunities or ideas are like a bus. There's another one coming in 10 minutes' time. Okay, so the reality is that most ideas, or ideas or opportunities that will pass in front of the same people, all right, over and over again, and they'll just avert their eyes from it, all right? It only takes that one person to go, you know what, I'm going to snag this idea for myself, all right? An idea is a good thing. It's actually not, it's worth about 5% of the journey, all right? In your case, Dom and Jared, starting a business that offered internships and work placement opportunities for students, all right, you go and tell people you're going to go and do that. What's that individual you're telling going to go and do with that information? I mean, I go and tell someone that I'm going to start a business that, basically sells calendars in shopping malls, or I'm going to start be involved in a business that revolutionizes, the payment system for, top-up things, top-up payments for mobile phones. It's like, yeah, okay, great, get on with it. The reality of it is that the idea is not worth much if it doesn't go anywhere. And if the thing is that, we think that that idea is the most valuable thing. Let me tell you that it's not. The execution of that idea, because that idea will evolve and change. It's very unlikely that the first idea you have will be the thing that actually gives you the success that you're looking for down the track. That thing will evolve. It'll go up garden paths and out the other side. It just will change because the idea sits within someone's head. Once it's pushed out into the market, everyone else's opinion and reaction to that idea counts, because ultimately they're going to be the people that buy it or not. All right. So the more conversations that you can have with people around testing that idea, and I'm talking about testing, is the better. So if you don't feel that you want to actually share the entire idea, fine. But go out there and do live market research about what people think about what you're trying to do, whether they be prepared to pay for what you're going to do, and in what quantity. I mean, yeah, it's really key.
And Paul, another great question that came up is, if you don't have a business background, can you still be an entrepreneur?
Sure.
Like, do you need to be a commerce student? Do you need to be, a business person in order to be successful at business? Or can someone that is studying something completely different but understands a problem in a certain area, create a business?
Yeah, like being an entrepreneur is not necessarily about coming from a business background or really even being interested in business to start with. I've got a friend that was a nurse, and she ended up creating a fantastic business in recruitment. Because as she was being a nurse, she discovered problems with being a nurse from a recruitment point of view. And then thought, well, I think that my skill set, I'm ready to go out and do this other thing. So I think the reality is that the business background, while helpful, is certainly not mandatory. And I think the other thing that exists is, and the beauty of trying to do something when you're younger is you don't really appreciate all the things that can go wrong. And I say that kind of a bit tongue-in-cheek, because if you knew all what the journey was going to be like and how difficult it might be, and the things that you didn't know when you started, if you knew all that at the start, you probably wouldn't start.
Yeah.
All right. So
I think Jared and I certainly attest to that.
Yeah. So the beauty of youth is that, and when I started my first business, and I've had multiple since, is as I've got older, I've probably got more risk adverse. I probably analyse more, and I probably don't do as much stuff. Now that might save me from more failures, but if I'd known the journey that I went down with my first business, the Calendar Club business, and how difficult that was to get going, and then ultimately it was very successful in the end. So I'm really fortunate, but I don't know. It's just I might have gone back to my cushy corporate life. I don't know. It's. I'm glad I didn't.
It's interesting because when you speak to entrepreneurs, of course, they're eternal optimists, and we'll always talk about the good stuff that happens.
Especially you, Dom.
Yeah, well, I have been known to be quite an optimist, but you certainly learn a lot from your failures, and you've said you've had quite a few successes in your career. You had any failures, and what did you learn from them?
Oh yeah, no. So I had a spectacular failure. Oh mate, it's in the newspapers. It was just don't look it up. But so basically, I think failures are an absolutely critical part of growth, whether it's a part of your life growth or part of business. Like a part of your business experience. So I thought I was a superhero. All right, back in, and I certainly proved that I wasn't in the end. But back in 2003, when I sold Calendar Club, I thought, oh, this is great. And then ePay once again was fantastic a year later. And then I got to the stage where I was kind of wondering what to do by about 2005-06. So I started a small investment company with another guy. And our aim back in 2005 to 2008, just pre-GFC, was to buy small businesses, like SMEs, and run them better, and then ultimately sell them. there was lots of bank money around that we could borrow, to buy these businesses, and there was lots of investors that were happy to support us. The business didn't work because everybody was doing the same thing. There was no point of difference back then because it was too easy. So we ended up buying one business in 2006, cost us $10 million, largely funded by a private equity firm, and by 2009, that business was blown up, basically, and gone into voluntary administration. And I look back at the end and I realised all the mistakes that we made. I was a board director, not a manager of the business, but I look back at all the things that went wrong, the things that we could have done differently. And right at the end, when everything was going badly and we looked like we had about 5 or 6 months left of cash to save the business, directors had resigned from the business. There was me and the 2 private equity, investors that were left. And I went into the business as the interim CEO to run it and try and save it. And we nearly did. We just ran out of time. But I remember thinking at the time afterwards how depressing that was. But looking back, I learnt more in that 5 or 6 months than I'd learnt in the successes that I'd had previously, because the experience was so intense, and so we had to make the right decisions at the right time all the way through. Otherwise, we nearly got out the other end, but didn't quite make it. And it was frustrating. Mentally it was a little bit tough afterwards. The whole thing hit the papers because it was a private equity deal. It was a tough time for me, but it made me better and more resilient, and it made me realise that you ain't no superhero. You're only as good as your last deal, right? Yeah. And my last deal was a shocker. So.
But you learn a lot. I have always considered, I actually don't like the word failure when it comes to business, having started quite a few businesses myself, and half were successful and half weren't. I actually call it practice, and I liken it to anyone that has ever wanted to run a marathon. If you decide that you want to run a marathon today, you can't go out on the weekend and run the Melbourne Marathon. You need to train and you need to practice, and you might have a goal one weekend to run 30K and you might only get to 20. It's practice. And I think it's the same in business. But we had a really good question here that I'd like to ask you about, and that is, it says here, this is from Shwetha. Concern is that in starting a business is funding. How do you get funding in order to start your business?
It's a good question, the whole funding thing. Okay, so I'll take this from a couple of different viewpoints. So I've started businesses myself, so I know that situation, and I've also invested in other businesses. So I've got both. I can wear both hats. The first thing I would say is that if you're asking other people to invest in you, then you should invest in yourself. So, and by that I mean that you can't expect someone else to do something that you're not doing. So you need to invest in your own business and your own opportunity, first of all. If you don't, you shouldn't expect other people to invest. I mean, that shows commitment to what you're doing, and it shows that you're just not going to flake out if things get tough. All right. Investors' money. So investors expect a return. It's not free money. So that's the first thing. So that then leads to the idea, and I think any business, in my mind, should start with a bootstrapping mentality. Okay. So that means I've got a limited amount of money, and that might just be your own money. I've got a limited amount of money. What can I do with this? Okay. So what I tend to think in that case is, how do I get my first customer, my first paying customer for this opportunity? Okay. That to me is critical. Getting revenue in the door early is one of the most important aspects to running a new business.
It's validation. If nothing else, it's validation, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. So, but get the situation, get your first customer. So, to give a good example is, it's pretty rare. I've started a few businesses in the last 10 years. And I don't think any of them I have, done without a clear idea of who that first customer is, or a customer that's already committed to be part of what we're doing. All right. Okay. Because if I can't get someone interested right at the start that wants to, be involved as a customer, then I'm not going to do it. All right. So fair to say in your business, Jared and Dom, you went down the path eventually of automating your intern match program. All right. Which is the driver of growth and scale down the track. But you guys, and it's one of the topics for this conversation, is you took the idea that we need to get started and we need to get revenue in the door, all right, from day one. So if we're going to go and do this intern placement business, we need hosts and we need interns, and then we need some method to manage that. And for a long period of time, you guys managed that via a spreadsheet, didn't you?
Yep.
All right. Okay. And that allowed you to get going really fast, because what you wanted was a university that would say, here's some students and some host companies that you could connect them into. And then the rest of it you had to sort out as you go. All right. But the amount of money that you guys had at the start went so far. All right. And it wasn't a large amount of money, let's be honest. And you've come extraordinarily long with not much money. That should be the aim of people here. All right. The other thing that I think that seed money, early money that does, some of these companies that go out and are able to raise tons of money, all right, what that does in some cases, it makes them lazy and complacent, all right? So all they do is talk about monthly cash burn, how much money we're spending. They don't talk and, we're going to burn through, $5 million this year, $2 million, 500 grand, whatever it is, and we've got this much left, all right? And some of those in the end will be able to connect their activities to revenue, all right? Some of them, but not all of them, okay? Because they never learnt the lesson at the start that a business is about making money and creating revenue, all right? And doing it at a scale enough to support your activities. So, there's plenty of ways in terms of raising money, if you do need some money, the starting point, really is family and friends. We talk about the 3 F's, and these are absolutely, this is the pattern that you need to go through if you do need to progressively raise money for a venture. Family, friends, and fools, the three F's, and I don't say that even tongue in cheek. But family, friends, and fools. The family, friends, and fools will get you to a point where you've validated your idea, where you've got some customers and you've got some traction, all right? Then after that, the angel investment community takes over, and there's some formalised communities around. For instance, in Melbourne, there's Melbourne Angels, there's Sydney Angels in Sydney. Typically, those guys won't invest in an idea, all right? And an idea is, they need something more than that. As you move through the angel stage will be like a primer to a pump, right? And that will allow more oxygen to go into the business to allow you to scale even further. Now, at this point, you're probably still not making money, all right? Or you might be, all right? And as you get bigger, you move into venture capital and et cetera. Or you may never need any of those stages. I mean, pretty much, my calendar business was some money from myself, and then I basically was able to negotiate with a lot of our suppliers for extended, credit terms, which basically funded me. Yeah. So you've got to look at opportunities. Can I get extended credit terms from vendors? What can I defer in terms of payment? How do I create runway with the amount of cash that I've got, all right, to go as far as I can? Because you don't want to run out of cash before your opportunity starts to really germinate into something good.
And I think that most people starting out on the entrepreneurial journey misunderstand what that first money they raise in the market is for. To start your business, you shouldn't be going out and finding money, as you say. No. You should be investing in it yourself and getting revenue. The next bit of money that you raise is to go faster. Yeah. And so hence, in order to raise it, you need to show that you've validated your idea, you have revenue, and that therefore that's the value proposition for an investor to come in, so that you can build it and go quicker and faster. Sound fair?
Yep. Yeah, I agree. I mean, if I go back to the start of this whole thing about how do I find it, I mean, a lot of the questions for people early on is, and I've been there, it's like, well, where do you even find an idea? Where are these things? How do I even start? Like, you know, I don't know anyone. You know, there's all these conditions that exist around people's lives. So, but you've got to go back to the first principles. Look for opportunities where, you know, sectors where customers are being overcharged or underserved. All right. Then solve a market problem. Okay. Ask yourself, is this problem that I'm solving something that the market thinks it will be valuable to them? All right. That way you avoid hobbies, passions, whatever else. You just actually worry, your aim is to solve something that's a problem in the market. Is this problem worth solving? So if I actually do solve it and go and create whatever it is, will the market appreciate it enough to pay me for it? Okay. Then how do I, when I go down this path, how do I make money out of this venture? All right. So what is my revenue and profit model out of this venture? So having a clear understanding of what that might be, and that will probably evolve over time, but having a bit of an idea at the start's useful as well.
Yep.
And then if you do bring in outside money, how do I make money? How do my investors make money? All right. Yeah. Okay. And in what time frame? All right. So understanding what their requirements are to invest is really important. You've got to have something that create that meets criteria like, is it viable? Economically viable? Is it practical? Can we actually build this thing or make this thing or serve this thing? All right. Okay. And is it desirable? Is there enough people out there that will want it? All right. Those three things are really critical, elements to assessing and finding an opportunity.
Could you say those three things again? So there was the first one.
Is viability. So is it economically viable? Is there enough margin? Is there enough sales? Is there enough all that stuff? Is it practical?
Yep.
Is it practical? Can we actually, within our capability and capacities, build this thing, make this thing, serve this thing, whatever it is, right? Goods or services, it doesn't matter. And the last one is it desirable? So is there enough people out in the market that are prepared, that will value this enough to buy it? And I'll give you a good example of that, right? So you get a guy pulls up in his car, opens up his boot, pulls out this brand new product, right? And he goes, hey, look at this new thing. And he gets a bunch of people crowd around the boot, right? And he goes, yeah, this is fantastic. And everybody goes, yeah, we love this. Look at this thing. All right. And everybody goes, yeah, great idea, great idea. Then the guy that's opened the boot up goes, okay, right, they're only $20. You want to buy one? Right? And then 90% of the people scatter. All right. So the reality is people might think that it's desirable, but it's not economic. All right. Yeah. Or they're not prepared to put their money in their pocket, out of their pocket. So,
and I think that's probably my definition of innovation and solving problems is that it's only going to be innovation when someone is prepared to take money out of their pocket and hand it over to have that problem solved. But getting back to starting, because I think that's where most of the people are here. I mean, how much help did you have back in, when did you say, 1995? Surely there were lots of people that you could go to back then for help to start your business.
Well, I reckon it's probably most of this audience wasn't even born in 1995. God bless you all. There
wasn't much help around then, was there?
No. Well, look, we didn't have Google or any of those. Social media didn't exist. Facebook, it wasn't even a germ in Zuckerberg's head, So there was nothing going on. So when I finally, worked out this idea and a kind of rough execution plan about how I was going to do it, and at that time I had no experience in retail, none. All right, which I think helped me. So I didn't know any of the landlords that owned the big shopping centres. I didn't know any of the suppliers. I didn't know anything. Right, so but in terms of support, the thing that I learned very early on was the great traits of I think being successful is you have to learn a very high degree of self-reliance. Okay, so if you're expecting other people to help you, other people to provide you money, other people to come in and sit down and solve all your problems for you, and you think that's a normal aspect to being running a new venture, you're probably not. It's probably not for you. The reality is that you don't have a lot of support in the early days. And in my case back then, I didn't have a mentor. I didn't really have anyone I could bounce ideas off. So I had to engage in self-help all the time, but I talked to everybody that I possibly could about, solving problems. Anyone that would, that I felt I could get into contact with that could help me, I would reach out to them. But there was no formalized networks. There was no formalized groups. Like today, from that point of view, life's a lot simpler for an entrepreneur. It's certainly not simpler to getting a successful venture off the ground. It hasn't changed in that period of time. But there's more resources around you through universities, through entrepreneurial groups, through meetups, all these things that you should, if you're actually interested in that stuff, get involved in. Look up meetups for entrepreneurs, go along and start talking to people. Go to, if there's at universities, there's groups like that as well. If there's projects you can get involved in, but also push yourself out the door. I had a great scenario the other day where at my house I've got a little business card. I think I've still got it here. I got this business card in my mail, right, which I kept. I thought, what is this? So you can see there, it's Miss Mo, right? It's a lawn mowing service, all right? So I was intrigued by this, and it was basically two best friends who just want to tend some lawns in the sunshine because our cafe's closed. All right? So, here's people that have gone out, created this, and the offer, they've given us an offer to mow our lawn for $30. All right? And I look at that as the start of an entrepreneurial journey for someone.
Yep.
All right? They're prepared to go out there, put themselves out into the market, go and test this. Probably cost them, $50 to produce 500 cards, and they go and hit a suburb, make sure they got access to a lawnmower, and they've got a business started. Now, this is not a business that's probably going to be something massive over time, but the important thing that I've learned is that each step and each thing you learn in any venture adds to the cumulative knowledge you have. So every other one goes faster and better, all right, because of all the things that you've done in your past. My first business ever was as a 16-year-old mowing lawns in our local neighbourhood. So I come from that background, all right? And that's critical.
So Miss Mo can expect to open up 150 pop-up stores in shopping centres all around Australia for 2 months of the year in about 30 years' time.
Yeah.
Excellent. That's the pathway.
Yeah.
But I remembered speaking to you some time ago, and because that we deal with international students, and international students do have it's a bit harder for them, mainly for two reasons. One, they have no network here in Australia.
Yep.
So you've already mentioned that it's imperative to go out and build your network, however you can do it. The other one is that they don't have much business knowledge. But you had a terrific story about when, and I think I was there at the time, we were at Deakin, and a couple of international students came up to you. Can you just tell that story? Because I think it's a really good lesson for international students about effort and perseverance.
Yeah. Okay. I'll tell the two-part story to this. So basically, I was invited to participate in a recruitment panel at Deakin. Okay, and there was me, who was sort of supporting kind of recruitment into SMEs, and there was the grad recruitment guy from KPMG, so Big Four accounting firm. Anyway, before we got up in the panel discussion, the Deakin students put on this amazing, almost like theatre pantomime show which was music and dancing, and it was all intended to illustrate their lives as international students and some of the difficulties they faced, and it was brilliant. Like, it would have taken hours and hours of practice and rehearsals, and I was blown away, right? And then we did the panel discussion, all right? And after that, they just moved us all out into the next room to just have a networking session, just informal with drinks, etc. So I moved out there, and I stayed around till the end. And I had at one point I had a international student, a young girl who came up to me who was in data analysis and data science, or more analysis, I think. Anyway, she was very impressive. She spoke about her background, and I was very impressed. And I said, look, one of my very good mates is the CEO of Belong, the telco, which is owned by Telstra. And I said, look, he's always talking about needing more and more people in data, right? So, and looking for good people, though. And I said, look, I don't know whether what sort of chances you might have in terms of getting a role there, but if you'd like, I'll make a one-to-one introduction for you to this guy.
The CEO.
The CEO. Yeah, the CEO of Belong, right? So you met Ben, Anyway, so I said, but here's my card, and you need to get in touch with me and make sure you want me to go and do this, all right? Do you think I ever got an email or a phone call? Didn't get one. All right. 15 minutes later, I'm talking to another two students who are doing some, theatre production type course. I'm not sure what it was, but anyway, so the way they were talking, I thought I could introduce you to a couple of people that were international students in their own right, not so long ago, who started a video production company, as international students, right, which was going well.
Yeah.
Would you like me to introduce you to these guys to have a chat? And this is what they do. This is what you're looking to do. I said, once again, here's my card, and get in touch with me. I'm not going to make the contact myself until you tell me that you want me to do it. All right? No contact, either one.
Yeah.
So, and that really blew me away because, during the presentations earlier, the international students were complaining about having no network. And I'm thinking, okay, I'll do my best while I'm around here to at least give 2 or 3 people, whoever I can get around to, that seem good people, an opportunity to meet some other people that might be able to move their career along. And I was just blown away. I'll give you the side story of that, though. So there's a company which is these video production guys, international students who are known to the Outcome.Life guys.
Yep. So
they were doing a series of videos just because, in their view, they didn't have connections in Australia. All right, they were Asian students, really nice people, loved them, really driven and motivated. And they came out to me. They got in touch with me and said, "Look, we're shooting a video about leadership in business. We'd like to profile you and some other people. Can we do a video on you?" Right. So I said, "Sure, you come out. Let's do it." Anyway, so as we were talking to them, they were showing me some work that they'd done previously. And I remember thinking at the time, looking at it, and these were like, how old, Dom? 20, 21?
Yeah, 21.
And I remember thinking that, gee, these guys are good. Like, this quality of this video and the way they've produced is fantastic, right? So when we were talking and going through this process of shooting the video for me, there was a point in time where I said, have you guys considered turning this idea, this little passion project that you're doing, all right, and you're doing it just to meet other people, to open up your networks, which is a great thing anyway, but turning it into a business? And, if you are, I'll make some intros to people that use video in their businesses, all right, to help. And I think Dom and Jared did the same. So these guys basically took off straight away, right? They decided they were going to go for this, all right? So they had the right mindset. They were going to start, and they didn't have money or anything else. They were borrowing equipment from RMIT, all the photography equipment, right, out of their photography lab, right? and they were shooting videos, corporate videos that they were getting paid to shoot. All right, and they were bootstrapping like crazy, and they were milking the small number of contacts that they had for more contacts. It was brilliant. It was entirely the way to go.
They were hustling.
Right? They were hustling.
Yeah.
And even now they've expanded the business into social media and other things, and they're on the way to run a full kind of like creative agency. Pretty much from nothing. That's the difference. That's if you want to be an entrepreneur. That those opportunities that come your way, when I spoke to them, they could have gone, nah, we're just shooting videos for this thing, because we want to go and get a job. All right. They said, you know what? Yeah, we're shooting videos because we want to get a job, but geez, this other opportunities come along that we're going to go for instead. All right. And we can always go back to the job thing if this thing doesn't work.
Yeah.
All right. But they had to go.
And I posted a link to their business up on screen. It's the guys from Pencil Rocket. They've gone from strength to strength. They're just doing wonderful, wonderful things. And Dan and Nathaniel have been going great. Look, we're fast running out of time. And as you know, Paul, we could chat for hours, but I just wanted to make sure we covered off on all the things that we said we would talk about. We've done all that except for one, which most people would find intriguing, and that is that the counterintuitive approach to entrepreneurship is to do things that don't scale. But everything that we hear about is you've got to scale. But what you're saying is, no, do things that don't scale. What do you mean by that?
It's about timing. So in the early days of any venture, you're going to have to do a whole lot of stuff yourself. All right. Okay. So, and you're basically going to be, what you want to do is you want to get the business going, you want to get it productive, and you want to, the first thing you want to do is you want to kind of maybe start paying yourself a bit of money. All right. Because that like solves a lot of ills, in a business, right? If you start getting paid. Okay. So, but the problem with that is that, the more time that you spend yourself working in the business, the less chance you've got of scaling the business. But at the start, the things that you need to do, that you do at the start to prove the business, to prove its viability, to prove the business case,
validate it.
It's probably later on when you turn that business into something bigger that might be able to be scaled by using tech as an enabler. All right. In the early days, and you guys, like, Outcome's a classic example of using spreadsheets at the start to validate your idea. All right. So you go and place 2,000 interns, right, Tom? Is that about right?
Yes.
Using a spreadsheet. All right.
Yep.
If the aspirations of Outcome.Life were to go and place 100,000 students, you wouldn't be able to do that on a spreadsheet.
No.
All right. But to get to the point where you can invest in the tech to enable that scale to happen, because the only way you'd be able to do that is a really heavy duty database, you needed to prove through that first stage, i.e. by using a spreadsheet, which isn't scalable and will eventually break, and because you just, it's just, you can't control it. You need to go through that stage first. So you need to do the things at the start that ultimately won't help you scale to the extent that you want to scale, but they're important early on. That's the thing.
Yeah, and from our point of view, we did that because a lot of tech businesses think that they can build the system and then they will come. And that's the wrong way to go about it. But because we got into the nitty-gritty and learned everything about what it takes to place students en masse, now I think we can go out and build the platform that will deliver that and could automate those processes, which will be a lot more valuable as a tech play rather than really another placement business.
I'll tell you one. Yeah, it's a great point, Tom. I'll tell you my quick example around that, because the other side of it was I was involved. I invested in an app. All right, there was a human resources app that was basically about quick and easy performance reviews of people in businesses. It was pretty smart tech. All right, but it was run by guys that were tech guys. Uh-oh. So, yeah. So they, I was a small investor, but there was $400,000, $600,000 got pumped in to build this app. All right. And virtually at no way through that process was the team. Remember, I was an investor outside the box, but the team, the operations team, they were only focused on building the tech. They weren't focused on going out and getting people to use it. They weren't focused on going out and finding customers to buy it, all right, and put it within their business. So in the end, they built a beautiful piece of tech that no one wanted, right? And it was a beautiful piece of tech, but everyone goes, yeah, it's really nice, but yeah, if they could have shortcut all that by doing the things early on that didn't scale, all right, and doing that tech in a less advanced tech way, with a more of an MVP, a minimum viable product, and gone and smashed that out into the market to see whether, having spent 20 grand, to see whether that thing would work or not. But they spent 500 and it was flushed down the toilet, basically, unfortunately.
It sounds like their CTO just wanted to build the biggest, greatest thing ever rather than, build a business.
I think there's fear too, Dom. I think that there's a fear in tech that you build it and they will come. Well, I never have that view. I want them to come first. I want to see the customer. I want to see the whites of the customer's eyes, and then I'll build the tech, like you guys did.
Yeah.
And
do the unscalable before you do the scalable.
Exactly right. Yeah.
Cool.
Exactly right.
So we've got 2 minutes to go. Jared, was there anything we haven't covered?
No, I did. There's a question that I'd written down at the top of my page, Paul, at the start. And Neha asked a question about it, and I'm really glad she did, and I want to address it with you, is that we've met a lot of international students that say it's harder for them to be an entrepreneur because they're not from Australia. And I think the opposite can be true, though, because a lot of things that you see in different countries provide opportunities in different countries. And Neha put up a point that she wants to start. She's seen a lot of smoothie companies in Australia, and there's no smoothie companies in her country of origin. And to me, that is the greatest opportunity that internationals have, is that you get to see things in different markets that don't exist in your, markets of origin or other markets that you've seen. And I just wanted to address that with you, Paul, as to your views, because I think they have an advantage in being able to look at opportunities that you could take somewhere else.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think it's a great point and a great question. So I think with entrepreneurism, you got to figure out where you fit on the scale. Okay, so right at one end, on the hard left, is the inventors. The people that come up with these fantastic new things that are brand new. Then you got people that are sort of the innovators that sort of follow in a little bit later and maybe improve that invention. All right. And then you got the guys that are a little bit more hard-nosed. They're innovative, but they're very execution-focused and very market-focused. All right? And if you looked at the bell curve, probably the vast majority or a large amount of entrepreneurs fit within that third group, okay? You don't have to come up with the new thing, all right, the brand new thing. And we should, there's so many things that aren't done well, right, that we can improve and create something better, all right? That's the first point. Now, if you put geography into that and say, hey, smoothies are something that's big out in Australia but not big back home, then what you got to just do is you got to do this stuff that we talked about, was work out whether that's a problem in the market that you're operating in, work out whether people would be prepared to be involved and buy that product, work out what product it would be that you'd actually sell, whether it's the same as exists out here or not. I don't think that, and then all the execution stuff comes along, whether it's in this country or another country. I think one thing I would say is that the history of this country, Australia, is that many of the absolutely legendary entrepreneurs in Australia are first-generation immigrants. All right? First-generation immigrants that came out post-World War II. All right? And they came out with probably less structure and knowledge and finances than the majority of international students are out here, right, at the moment, okay? And they started with the ultimate bootstrapping because what they were focused on was pure survival. They had no backup plan, nothing. They had to make it work. All right.
This is my parents and grandparents, Paul, from Italy.
Yeah. So this country's been built on immigration. And the amazing success stories from new immigrants into Australia just is endless. All right. So if you go with a mindset that you have a disadvantage because you're international students, kind of get over it. In all honesty, get over it. Embrace the opportunities that are put in front of you and do the hard graft and the hard grind that every entrepreneur has to do. Sure, you might not know as many people, but go out there and meet them. Figure out who it is. There was no LinkedIn and those things which are able to easily connect you. All right. But when you connect, one advice I'll give you, when you're connecting with people, and I get this stuff all the time, right? I get people that say, hi, on LinkedIn, hey, can I connect with you? You seem like you're doing, interesting stuff. Just like to keep, in touch with you. All right. You go, yeah, all right. I don't know who this person is, but, and then the next day I get some bloody cold call, like sales pitch, as if suddenly these people are people that colleagues or people that I know. That's not how you do it. All right. You have to create value for the people that you're trying to get to help you as well. It's not a one-way street, okay? So I'll go out of my way to help people, all right? But, I say to them, don't abuse the help, all right?
Yeah.
Look for opportunities to help others as much as you're looking for opportunity for people to help you, all right? Yeah. So, that's, but it comes back to the same thing, which is the work ethic. If that's absent, it won't work. No matter whether you're looking for a good job or looking to create a business, it just won't work.
Yeah, and I think in Niha's example too there, Paul, my advice to Niha would be that I'd go and work in one of those booth shops in Australia. I'd go and work there for the next 6 months and learn absolutely everything you possibly can. And that you're going to get paid to learn about how to go and start a business in your home country. And that's putting the effort in.
But be careful because if you remember Starbucks and also Masters, these are a couple of American corporations who thought they would just come and deliver exactly what they delivered in America and got it terribly wrong. Starbucks came out and I think they opened 100 stores and had to close 80 of them. Make sure you validate in the home country. Because
basically in that case, Australia had a very well-developed coffee culture that America didn't have when Starbucks started. All right, so Starbucks thought we'd just transplant America to here, and we had Italians and Greeks making great coffee for 60 years before Starbucks came here, and the Starbucks coffee didn't rate as well as those barista kind of like your favorite barista coffee. So you do need to be very careful to the person that asked that question whether the opportunity that exists in Australia is transplantable over there or not. And that's about societal situation, economic situations. It needs to fit. All right, you need a product market fit. All right, that's key. If there's not a product market fit, it won't work.
Yeah, but I think if I had to sum up everything that you've said, Paul, it's about effort and it's about energy and it's about hustle. And I posted up a great saying of mine. I've got lots of sayings, as everyone knows. But one of my favourites is that if it is to be, it's up to me. So, yes, there is help. And we run a pre-accelerator program just for internationals. And we're very happy to help. But if you don't put the effort in, if you don't hustle, as Gary Vaynerchuk would talk about, you won't get anywhere. So with that, Paul, we thank you very much for chatting with us today. Final closing, Jared?
Yeah, so thanks again, Paul. We really appreciate you taking the time and for your insights. The next session will be on in 2 weeks' time, and we're actually going to bring one forward where we've been able to get Bhavisha Sharma, who's a senior manager at Ernst & Young in data and analytics. And we're going to deep dive into being a data analyst as a career. So there's a lot of people doing commerce and IT jobs that are then thinking, what do I do? IT and commerce study, and then are wondering what are they going to do when they graduate, and what are the jobs of today. Well, one of the jobs of today is being a data analyst. Paul mentioned before about the CEO of Belong, who's looking for data people. It is in huge demand, and so we're going to take a really deep dive into what it takes to be a data analyst and the job opportunities that are there for you. I will mention too that a couple of people have asked about where to go to next to get help. Paul Breen has actually written a book. It's called The Entrepreneurial Way. Paul, where do we find this book?
I think you get it on, I think it's Amazon. Yeah, Amazon's a good one. Or can't remember now. I don't really track it anymore. But yeah, try definitely on Amazon, and yeah, that's the one I know for sure.
96 quotes in the back is where you get, just jump to the back of it.
I love that. I actually still have that around here somewhere. I think it was 190 or something, but these fantastic little quotes, and all of them are little gems. And although I review about it all the time, Paul, they're actually very good. So I've used them a lot. No,
thank you, and thanks to all the participants. It's a pleasure talking to you. You know, I wish you all the best with your endeavours as you go forward. Just one little piece of advice before we go: just do something new every day. All right, just try something new. Push yourself out a little bit further. Meet somebody new. You know, I think that's all those things add up cumulatively to you know, a prosperous business life. So, you know, those things all count.
And a little plug for you, Paul. I don't think I mentioned it earlier, but over Christmas, my wife and I ran a calendar club. And the reason why we wanted to do it was that I wanted my children, who were 17 and 19 at the time, I wanted to give them experience of dealing with the worst people on the planet, which is the public. And we ran a store, one of your stores, out our way, and it was fantastic. 2 months worth of work. We learned a lot. I think we cleared about $16,000, which was fantastic. Nice little, you know, injection for Christmas for us. So I would really recommend, especially for international students, if you really want to get a taste of what it's like to run your own business, and it's kind of handed to you on a platter, you just got to run it, dealing with stock and dealing with customers and dealing with, you know, FPOS machines that sometimes don't work and all that. You could do worse than run one of Paul's calendar club stores. And I know there was a few students from La Trobe University that have been running one for the past 4 years and love it. Bit of a kicker for them in revenue. And it's you know, it's a really good thing to do, getting that experience. So hit Paul up on LinkedIn as well, and perhaps have a look at that. It's a great opportunity.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, everyone. Have a lovely day. Stay safe, of course, and we look forward to seeing you again.
Terrific. Thanks again. Thanks,
Bye
Paul.
now. Bye, guys. Bye.